Big game on Saturday evening, early evening. Newcastle United against Arsenal. The last 4 fixtures between these two: Newcastle 0, Arsenal 2, Newcastle 0-0, Newcastle 2-0 against Arsenal, and Arsenal 2-0 against Newcastle. So I reckon there'll definitely be a 2 and a 0 in this one, but which way? And as these two teams collide, I think over the last few seasons, you've kind of seen them kind of grow up together a little bit. I think 2 seasons ago, you remember that this fixture at St James's Park, it was one where Arsenal completely sort of fell off a cliff in those last few games, and they were trying to get those Champions League places, which Abbi, I'm sure you remember fondly.
I do. It's lovely.
And then last year, I think you had that 0-0 between the two, and you saw that those two defences were on top. Let's start off with Arsenal. Nubaid. Arsenal are overall winning games, overall collecting points. But there's some sort of worrying stats when it comes to how free-flowing they are from an attacking point of view. How do you feel about Arsenal this season in comparison to last season, where they really flew out the traps?
They're definitely less fun to watch. I think last season they went through a very explosive phase. We spoke about them a lot on this show, where we said they're maybe a hybrid of peak Man City and peak Liverpool. I think they're now veering a lot more towards being like Man City. They want to keep the ball, they want to suffocate the opposition. How they win games is by sustaining attacks. Arteta's constantly touched on Kai Havertz in particular winning duels. Their game is now, can we keep you camped in your own half for as long as possible, try and stop counter-attacks. They also make flat fouls in clever areas, and then when they've got possession, can we get it to our midfield as fast as possible? We've seen when Odegaard's not there, they do lack something, but Declan Rice has played like a monster this season. And I just think, because people are going, they're not that fun, they're a little more boring, they're not that good. I think that's like the trend at the moment. Whereas I think they're still accumulating points, probably not to the level they were last season, but that was an anomaly, the first 18 games. But what I think you're going to find now is that they will just continue to win and grind teams down rather than potentially blow teams away or potentially get blown away.
Yeah, a little bit more attritional doesn't actually mean it's not better, doesn't it? Because I think defensively they look very, very solid. Going forward, this season actually and last season they've averaged 2.3 goals per game. Last season they were creating 2.6 big chances per game. They averaged 15.6 shots per game. This season it's taken a minor drop, 2.4 big chances created and 14.4 shots. And although that doesn't sound like much, it's kind of the accumulation over a season is where it could hurt them moving forward. And kind of it jumps into my feeling that I actually think Liverpool are going under the radar a little bit. And the reason I've consistently said is that I think they can go and get more goals than Arsenal this year. Do you feel like Arsenal are a little, or Tottenham, this season are a little bit like Arsenal last season? Just as a quick one. Because I think there's not the same, there doesn't feel like there's the same freedom with Arsenal this year. And I think the opposition know that.
Yeah, I'd say that looking at Arsenal, they're a bit more mature maybe this year, which is what I would kind of expect anyway from having that explosive first season and just playing without any fear. But then obviously the way it tailed off and the capitulation at the end of last season for their title challenge, I think they want to learn from that and do it in a different way. There's expectation
on Arsenal this year, right?
Yeah, there is. I think, comparing it to Tottenham, I think at the moment there is no expectation on Tottenham, which is very similar to Arsenal last year. Just go and enjoy yourself and play nice football and see where you end up. With Arsenal, there is that expectation now, and I think that they want to learn from what happened last year. I do think, though, that maybe sometimes Arteta does tinker a little bit too much. I think that maybe has come to, not their detriment, because they're still unbeaten in the Premier League and they're still up there, they're still playing great football, and I still think they will be up there. But I just think some things don't need to be tinkered with. I don't think at some point you need to play, Partey at fullback to accommodate Havertz in the middle. I don't think you need to take out Ramsdale for Raya and then, kind of disturb the back line. Also, when it's been a little bit shaky for Raya, then you put Ramsdale back in the Carabao Cup. Is he then going to play against Newcastle, or are you going to put Raya in? But then does that affect his confidence?
I'm confused.
There's a lot, and I do think that when you're a player, I think that these are small margins, but they can affect your confidence. Yeah. And I just think that sometimes there are certain areas on the pitch you need to leave alone. I don't necessarily think that Kai Havertz was the right signing per se to go over the line. I don't think he's ever really massively wowed us at Chelsea. I think that you could see that it was a strange pick for me to be the manager's choice. But Declan Rice, the amount of money spent on him, I think that's a great signing. That is someone that is a leader and can potentially get you over the line. I still think that they should have been looking at a striker, though, potentially something a plan B. Maybe they'll get Ivan Toney, maybe they won't. But that's the area I think they need if we're going to see it end up in a title.
And that rotation is interesting, actually, because if you think of Arsenal last season, not a lot of rotation at all, and that's maybe why they ran out of steam. Tottenham, that's the main fear. So again, there is a similarity there. Let's talk about Newcastle, whose home form is always pretty special, has been in the Champions League, although lost actually in that game against Dortmund, of course. But since the start of last season, Newcastle have only lost 3 matches at home in the league. They've scored 13 goals. They've only conceded 3, which is the 3rd best in the league as well. And when it comes to rotation, I think that's the thing. I thought Newcastle would really struggle, and they keep proving me wrong. The game against Man United, it's a good time to play Man United, but some of the players on that pitch, you would have thought wouldn't have been anywhere near Newcastle at this stage. But the unity that both the fans and that entire squad, not just the first 11, have, it gives them a chance in any game. And they'll be close to favourites in this one, will they not?
They're just really flexible. I think, although Eddie Howe will never get spoken about like maybe the way we speak about Arteta and Pep Guardiola, and I actually do think his tactics from a very tactical standpoint are much more simplified than some of these other guys. But one thing they do consistently in games is they're super adaptable. The moment they concede, they'll drop into a mid-block play on the counter because they've got pace going forward. It's actually a no-brainer. I think there is a point where managers, maybe Arteta at this point, they just overcomplicate things that are completely working. And on the flip side, they can chase a game as well. And then at home, they're relentless. They've scored 13 goals at home this season, only conceded 3, which is frighteningly good form. And a lot of the times, teams go there now and think, we might not win this. I was at the PSG game, and PSG nobody wanted the ball. They were absolutely frightened because of how high energy Newcastle are. So I think this game in a lot of ways is like yin and yang against each other a little bit. You've got control versus helter-skelter. I just wonder what Newcastle will see, because they've got a lot of injuries. Against United, they sort of sat back at times.
This is what I mean. It's difficult. Like, what is the right team to sort of navigate the game against Dortmund away from home, which it's enormous, because they've got a real chance of getting out of that group. But you've still got to play PSG and AC Milan. So every game, you've got to give it absolutely everything. The midfield's going to be crucial here. Tonali obviously is not available. Joe Linton sort of came in against Man United, looked really, really good. You've got Longstaff, you've got Willock scoring great goals as well. Do you think the midfield's where this game's going to be won and lost? Abbi?
Yeah, I do think that. I mean, the problem is that they have got lots of injuries, Newcastle, in terms of their first 11. And just looking at what they've got, key players, Harvey Barnes, Jacob Murphy, obviously Tonali is now as well, Botman, Isak. They've got a lot of players that are missing from that. But I do totally agree that I think it is going to be the midfield. I think there's a big fear that Arsenal will get run over in that midfield, or overrun, to put it correctly.
Run over,
or
you're fine either way.
Yeah, fine either way. But I think that's what it will be. And I was equally at that game, at the PSG game, and I've never seen so much physicality from a team. I think they were going after everything. They made PSG scared. And I think that this is an opportunity for them to do the same thing to Arsenal. Obviously, you bring in the atmosphere to it. That is like having a 12th man. But I do think, tackles in the middle of the third of the park for Newcastle. Joe Linton has been pretty good when he's at it, and I think that he can really contribute to that this weekend against
the one thing Arsenal. I would say is Newcastle play such high energy football, and they did that against PSG, but PSG don't have midfielders that want the ball. Declan Rice is the antidote to what Newcastle will try and achieve, and I think Arsenal might be better equipped against Newcastle if they play the high octane style.
And a 2 midfield as opposed to a 3, I think is going to make a massive difference here as well. So prediction time. I'll go first. I feel like both of these teams would kind of take a draw. Especially with the Champions League on the horizon. That said, I've got to say, Newcastle keeps surprising me with the focus and the energy that they have. They go at it every single game, and I think they might pinch this one. I think they might sneak it 2-1 for me for Newcastle. What are you saying about?
I think they've got to get tired soon. It's got to happen. You can't just keep playing.
I said that, and they don't get tired.
We say it every game, every season, every week on this show. Get tired, Newcastle. I think Arsenal will pinch it 2-1 because they rotated midweek. I just think Newcastle have to get tired. Simply has to happen.
I don't think they'll be that tired, because equally they rotated during the week as well. They had 5 fullbacks on against United, and they really rested everyone and brought them on for kind of the last 20 minutes when the game was already done. So I'm going to back Newcastle.
Did you say? I saw the Tottenham fan come out and then come back in. Oh yeah, of course. I need to go to Newcastle.
I can see the argument for it being a draw, like 2-2 or something, but I'm going to go 3-1 Newcastle.